everybody, how y'all doing? This is number 2 going out to Mike Gibson, USA, the volley and return, I think is what I'm going to call this. Because you did mention something about, like, if we're playing a tennis game going back and forth. So, I hope that the other one uploaded, so I'll see, because I'm going to speak on this, and I will have been cutting off from what I had on the previous, because like I say, I don't know if it did it. So, okay, let's get to a real deep one. When you heard me describe, feeling at home, when I went to church, particularly looking at the artwork you said and the architecture and looking up and, that I was home, I'm sure that seemed fabricated. Of course that would. That makes sense to me. Absolutely, that you would think that was like I was blowing smoke. Absolutely. There are a lot of reasons for that. One of them is because I think you said, particularly about, you don't have to feel that connection or whatever by going to a church, and so that it wouldn't be any more special, I guess, maybe. I wondered if that's what you're sort of indicating, that I could have felt that anywhere. Well, this was the thing. That feeling, that sense that I have when I'm meditating, and definitely, specifically, the things that I see in my dreams, about what I imagined and what I felt and what I always wanted to experience, that was vacant in every other variety that I had experienced, was a complete match when I finally went. And the fact that I was so completely reluctant to have anything to do with it just, makes that comical and ironic and, pathetic. It's like the struggle of humanity, right? Let's round up the usual suspects. I said something about that before. I talked about the first Orthodox that I met here on YouTube, was through watching Yusuf Al-Tahir and his videos on his previous channel. Was, like I said, John the Hut Dweller. He had over about 700 at that time. I watched his entire library. Now he's on another channel by his own name, Yusuf Al-Tahir. So in watching that, it was finally a clear recognition of everything that he spoke my heart, and it was so confusing to me that he was using Christian language for it, because I'd never found those congruent anywhere else. And that's what confused me so deeply. How can you talk about a peaceful, loving Jesus and then talk about a bloody sacrifice, talk about original sin, talk about all of these things that to me do not line up? And that is exactly why it does line up for me in Orthodoxy, because they don't have that. All the things that, Catholicism and Protestantism has as their basic tenets, and even some of the Unitarian believers' beliefs. Not as much, the Society of Friends, the Quakers, but some UU, some Unitarian Universalists. It just depends, because you can have quite a great variance. But every single one, every cog in the wheel fit in Orthodoxy. And that was confusing, irritating, and aggravating. I mean, like, and I've said it in so many blogs, I was furious. I was just yelling at God. I was absolutely fighting with God. And I was fighting with Joseph. That's probably how we forged our friendship. We fought for it. And what I mean by that is I had so many fears and so many experience previously that had been bad, but those people had called themselves Christians, that as soon as he says that, I'm like, I get my hackles up, because I'm like, oh great, well, they're going to judge me, they're going to want to kill me, they're going to, and I'm not exaggerating, like, that's a lot of what I was taught, was especially in Judaism, it's very isolationist, particularly a lot of the exposures that I had as a child. Um, but when I grew older and moved away from the area that had been that way, and got and yet at the same time, even though I would go to this school where I was taught that, my mother never supported any of that and taught me to be very open and loving to people of all different varieties and backgrounds. So that was by education in the room one way and by action in a completely other way. And so there wasn't a complete, bigoted kind of friction, but um, it can fall back into that so easily, kind of like as a failsafe, just when you've been taught that. I mean, I've heard people sort of describe prejudice as a cancer, like when people are in stress, that it'll come out again, like those fearful hatreds will come forward. Um, and I've had it happen to me, and it shocked me so much because I never ever thought um, that was even a part of what I believed, and it really wasn't, but it was the way that those ideas were originally structured in my mind. So when I would pull back from them and go, oh no, I truly don't believe that at all, um, it would shock me that was even, somebody's template that, when I was really young was stamped upon me, what have you. So when you talk about, the aesthetics of the church, um, as far as the architecture, yeah, that architecture is absolutely comforting. As far as the icons, they speak a language and are written. Um, they completely reflect a prayer. That's the best way I could say it. And if I'm wrong, any Orthodox, just tell me. But it feels like I'm experiencing a prayer when I look at an icon. There's an immediate reverence, and they're not paintings. I mean, they would look to a person as a painting, but they speak a story. They teach. Um, they teach you. They teach me. Um, and that's why there's such a recognition of them all throughout. And like I said, the church that I go to is brand new. Most of the time the walls would not be white. That was like an anomaly. Most of the time they're all completely covered, and there's almost a darkness to them. Sometimes I've seen pictures of them, especially in Russia, because it's completely covered, and then they'll have candles, and that's what the light are of anything, because it's so dark from all the colors of the paint on the walls. So was I moved by that? Yeah, and if you want to listen to the vlog that I made directly the first day that I ever went to church, it might kind of build some more understanding for you as far as what I say, that I knew I was home, because um, there were many things that happened that as soon as I went in there, I knew I was at home. It was a complete sense. It was a feeling, and it had nothing to do with what I was looking at. Those were icing on the cake. Um, those were like the confirmations that were, you know, absolutely yes. There's no question. Just like if you would go into your parents' house and you know that the furniture is always set out in a particular way. Yeah, the map was accurate. Um, and then all the rest of it was just a joy to experience. There's a great description Yusuf has for seeing that, to try to express to someone who hasn't had an experience of something, that it's something that can't be done. Like if a person were blind from birth, to try to explain even just the concept of a color just would seem completely odd. I think he chooses colors because he himself is an artist. When I was very young, I remember I would ask my stepmother, what did certain things taste like? And she didn't have an ability, this is my stepmother, by the way, um, she didn't have an ability to describe them, but I did. And she she would say, what do you mean, describe the flavor? And so then I would say, well, for instance, the difference I would say between a nectarine and a peach, you know, the texture of the fuzziness on the outside, and the nectarine is smooth, but it's more tart. And, you know, and she would go, okay, yeah, there you go, Rachel, all right, blah, 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 blah. So then I would say, so what does such and such taste like? And she's like, I don't know, I can't describe it. Well, of course she tastes food. Maybe she tastes it differently than I do. But every single one of those sensations she couldn't find words for. And Gambler says it all the time. Words fail. Words fail every time. And being that he's at least bilingual in most days, yeah, he speaks English and Greek, if not more. I've never asked him, but that, yeah, words fail. You cannot describe something that's indescribable, nor can you describe something to someone um, that's not familiar to them, because, yeah, it sounds fabricated, it sounds hokey, it sounds ridiculous, it sounds like, yeah, all right, here you go again. And I used to listen to, you know, very evangelical, born again Christian believers, and every other word was Jesus, this and that, and I would simply roll my eyes and be irritated. And of course, you were a lot nicer than that, but because I'd never had that experience. The only way that I could experience anything Christian was through that Orthodox lens. It couldn't have come in any other way, because I had tried nearly them all to whatever degree that I was comfortable to do. Now, I don't believe that a person has to be Orthodox. I don't even believe a person has to be Christian to have that sensibility of a connection to the truth of what the universe really is. Um, I find myself most comfortable in the Orthodox world because there is nothing that I disagree with. Nothing. I can't find a one. If I did, I'd probably I'd have to restructure or something. I don't know. Okay, we're at 12 minutes. I'm gonna pop this out here and see if how the other one uploaded. And thank you so much for watching, taking the time, and I do wish you peace.